there's something wrong with the system? Or do you believe that at the end of the day you need strong anti-terror laws? They are a necessity in the times in which we live, even if they will be seen by civil liberty activists as trampling on individual liberties. 6 months custody without charge sheet, getting bail very difficult. Center can declare any individual as a terrorist. NIA can seize property. All of this suggests to me excessive state power of the Rambo state, as Dr. Singhvi calls it. The flip side is you need strong laws.
Well, Rajdeep, I think on one point I find that Dr. Singhvi and I definitely agree, which is an anti-terrorist law is necessary. I think that Manu has also very clearly said it is necessary. Where do the questions arise really? Such a law is necessary, and when we bring in a law to deal with something like terrorism, the law will tend to be more draconian than any other laws. When it's non-terrorist activities, when it's crimes as we have known them for centuries, then the law takes care of it. The laws are not draconian. The laws favor towards the finding of innocence, and they want innocence being, the guilt being proved beyond reasonable doubt, etc. But when you're dealing with something like terrorism, it is but natural that a draconian law comes in. Now, the more draconian the law, the stricter should be the way in which it is implemented and followed. And that is the important part. The part is that you have terrorism. You have to curb terrorism. The activities of terrorism hurt society at large, innocents are massacred. You need a law. That law will be draconian.
No, but how do anti-CA protesters get arrested under UAPA? That's exactly what happened. Why do I get arrested for my political views?
I can tell you any number of cases where people who have been accused of murder under Section 302 IPC have been in jail 14 years and then have been acquitted by the High Court. I can tell you any number of cases like that. Why are you not talking about that? That is unfortunately a systemic failure in India that law takes so long. According to me, a UAPA case should be finished within 3 years at the outside. It should not take longer than that. Well, this might be wishful thinking, this might be utopian, but I don't hear you screaming when a man who has been convicted of murder and 14 years down the line, the High Court acquits him and 14 years he's been in jail. I don't hear you screaming.
No, 1 minute. I'll tell you why I'm screaming. No. Aryama Sundaram, just a minute, sir. Just a minute. There was TADA brought in the late 80s after Mrs. Gandhi's assassination, and you saw in the early 90s in Gujarat. Just a minute, sir. There were farmers who were arrested under TADA. Then you had Pota, where you had innocents being picked up, and there was a general sense many of them were from the minority community accused of being terrorists and later let off. Now you have UAPA being used against those whose political views you don't agree with. That's my worry. The history of this country...
I started by saying the law is necessary. Its implementation, as I said earlier, and I will remind you, Rajdeep, what I said is the law is necessary, but its implementation should be done within a straitjacket. And that is why I'm glad this case has gone to Supreme Court, because I hope the Supreme Court will clear a lot of vagueness in the Act. Terrorist activities, terrorism, these are things which are capable of any kind of interpretation, and many judges can interpret it differently the way the Act says it. I'm hoping the Supreme Court will give strict guidelines as to when the Act can be invoked, when it cannot.
Okay.
Every Act which comes out has the problem of misuse. The ruling class, a governing party in power, always tries to usurp more and more power. I'm not talking about the present government. If the previous government did it, every government does it. It's a habit of the politician that any enactment they have which gives them power, they try to garner more power out of it.
Okay.
The point here is, don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. Find out how to implement it. Find out how the judiciary can get more involved in giving reparation at an earlier period. That is what we must look at. So what we must look at is, we know the executive will try to stretch its arm too long. That is where we need a very good, robust judiciary. A judiciary which will look into these matters at the very earliest and deal with it accordingly.
Okay.
And actually, if you tell me, if things are delayed, it is unfortunately a systemic failure, our judiciary's mistake here. And I have to say, I put the blame at judiciary's door.
So your